Hi guys, welcome back to my channel as we go through the law of one raw material. I want to thank all my new subscribers and welcome everybody. You guys are awesome in the comments, and I've been getting some really great emails and also messaging through my Instagram. I'm not always able to answer all of them, but I read as much as I can, and I do take notes on some of the questions you guys have. And one thing I do want to add on to what happened in the previous sessions, as Ra was talking about how by the time we get to 6th density, we tend to just be in thought form, like we don't go into actual physical bodies. And there's actually a really good reason for that. Like all societies that make it to 6th density tend to peter out. The reason for that is, you know, if you're like us in 3rd density moving into 4th, so we're going to start to feel everyone else's feelings and emotions, whether they're happy or sad. And we'll start to build a utopian society because when there's pain and suffering in the world, we have to go help. Because it's hurting us. We feel it. So if that happens all throughout 4th density, and then we get to 5th density, which is basically we're going to be able to communicate with each other in ways we can't do right now. Shared information in a society like through telepathy, really. Imagine we have telepathy access to like everyone who's ever gotten a PhD from around the world, say. And well, think about all the world's problems we would be able to solve. You know, all the pollution, we would collectively be able to solve that. Any problem we have with the earth, well, we're going to be able to fix. And remember, going through 5th density is incredibly long. And by the time we get to the end of 5th density going into 6th, the reason why the societies kind of peter out is because there's no room left for expansion. There's no room left for source in order to expand to know itself, and that's the point. You know, if you live in an absolutely perfect utopian society, there's no real polarization anymore. There's nothing left to do. So what happens in 6th density, you end up going into just basically like a spirit form. And you go to other places that are in 3rd density like we are right now, and you end up being like a spirit guide to those in 3rd density. Now they still follow the same rules where you know you can't mess with free will. So your spirit guides are able to continue their expansion through you, through watching 3rd density, but they're there to help. They want to help, they can help, but they can't mess with your free will. And the thing is, they don't help directly and just solve all your problems, but they try to give you the emotions and intuition, and they end up giving you synchronicities, and they nudge things a little bit to kind of put you on a path that you need to go on. And this is basically what happens all in 6th density. And so I just wanted to kind of extend that a little bit. You guys had some questions about why we don't take form, or why entities don't take physical form in 6th density. So let's get on with it. We are entering the 26th session because session 43 and 44 were private. I guess it was all personal matters going on, so they didn't put it in the books. So we're jumping right into 46th session. And it's kind of self-explanatory. They talk a lot about anger and how that manifests into Cancer. But in session 47, it really does get into more of the polarization between negative and positive, and the things that really happen in a negative service to self society. And they do talk about basically how the green ray is not activated and blue ray is not activated in negatively polarized service to self societies. And that makes sense because in 4th density, and if you're negatively polarized, that means you don't feel other people's emotions. You can only feel your own. You don't make your decisions and react to things because of the way someone else feels. It's only by how you feel, and that's what it means when it's service to self or service to others. So in negatively polarized 4th density, there is no green ray and blue ray. activation within bodies. And Ra does mention how there are no past 6 density negatively polarized service to self, which makes sense. Like, how would you be able to get that far in a society when you don't help each other and have unity? So anyway, let's get into it. The next session, 48, is really great, and I'm going to talk a lot about that one because I do have a good experience with it. We're going to talk about ghosts, and we're going to talk about really what happens when you die, which everyone would want to know. So yeah, just sit back and enjoy it, and I will see you at the end of these sessions.
Session number 44, March 28, 1981, and session number 45, April 6, 1981, contain only personal material and were, for that reason, removed from the Law of One. The Law of One, Book 2, Session 46, April 15, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner, if an entity polarizes toward the service to self path, would anger have the same physical effect that it would have on the entity polarizing on the service to others path? Would it also cause cancer, or is it just a catalytic effect working in the positively polarizing entity? Ra, I am Ra. The catalytic mechanisms are dependent, not upon the chosen polarity of a mind-body-spirit complex, but upon the use or purpose to which this catalyst is put. Thus the entity which uses the experience of anger to polarize consciously positively or negatively does not experience the bodily catalyst but rather uses the catalyst in mental configuration. Questioner, I am not sure that I understand that. Let's take some examples. An entity polarizing toward the negative path becomes angry. Let's take the condition where he develops a cancer. What is the principle that is at work for him? Ra, I am Ra. We see the thrust of your query and will respond at variance with the specific query if that meets with your approval. Questioner, certainly. Ra, the entity polarizing positively perceives the anger. This entity, if using this catalyst mentally, blesses and loves this anger in itself. It then intensifies this anger consciously in mind alone until the folly of this red ray energy is perceived not as folly in itself but as energy subject to spiritual entropy due to the randomness of energy being used. Positive orientation then provides the will and faith to continue this mentally intense experience of letting the anger be understood, accepted, and integrated with the mind-body-spirit complex. The other self, which is the object of anger, is thus transformed into an object of acceptance, understanding, and accommodation, all being reintegrated using the great energy which anger began. The negatively oriented mind-body-spirit complex will use this anger in a similarly conscious fashion, refusing to accept the undirected or random energy of anger and instead, through will and faith, funneling this energy into a practical means of venting the negative aspect of this emotion so as to obtain control over other self, or otherwise control the situation causing anger. Control is the key to negatively polarized use of catalyst. Acceptance is the key to positively polarized use of catalyst. Between these polarities lies the potential for this random and undirected energy creating a bodily complex analog of what you call the cancerous growth of tissue. Questioner, then as I understand it, you are saying that if the positively polarizing entity fails to accept the other self or if the negatively polarizing entity fails to control the other self, either of these conditions will cause cancer, possibly. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The first acceptance, or control depending upon polarity, is of the self. Anger is one of many things to be accepted and loved as a part of self or controlled as a part of self, if the entity is to do work. Questioner, then are you saying that if a negatively polarizing entity is unable to control his own anger or unable to control himself in anger that he may cause cancer? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is quite correct. The negative polarization contains a great requirement for control and repression. Questioner, a repression of what? Ra, I am Ra. Any mind complex distortion which you may call emotional which is of itself disorganized, needs, in order to be useful to the negatively oriented entity, to be repressed and then brought to the surface in an organized use. Thus you may find, for instance, negatively polarized entities controlling and repressing such basic bodily complex needs as the sexual desire in order that in the practice thereof the will may be used to enforce itself upon the other self with greater efficiency when the sexual behavior is allowed. Questioner, then the positively oriented entity, rather than attempting repression of emotion, would balance the emotion as stated in an earlier contact. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct and illustrates the path of unity. Questioner, then Cancer is a training catalyst operating for both polarities in approximately the same way but creating or attempting to create polarization in both directions, positive and negative, depending upon the orientation of the entity experiencing the catalyst. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect in that catalyst is unconscious and does not work with intelligence but rather is part of the, shall we say, mechanism of learned teaching set up by the sub-logos before the beginning of your space-time. Questioner, how does Cancer do this learned teaching when the entity developing Cancer has no conscious idea of what is happening to him when he develops Cancer? Ra, I am Ra. In many cases catalyst is not used. Questioner, what is the plan for use of the catalyst of Cancer? Ra, I am Ra. The catalyst, and all catalyst, is designed to offer experience. This experience in your density may be loved and accepted or it may be controlled. These are the two paths. When neither path is chosen, the catalyst fails in its design and the entity proceeds until catalyst strikes it, which causes it to form a bias towards acceptance and love or separation and control. There is no lack of space-time in which this catalyst may work. Questioner, I am assuming that the plan of the logos is for positively and negatively polarized social memory complexes in fourth density and above. Can you tell me the purpose of the plan for these two types of social memory complexes with respect to Coulomb's law or negative and positive electrical polarity, or in any way that you can? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument grows weary. We shall speak with you again. We may indicate the possibility, without further harm to this instrument, of approximately 2 sessions per your weekly period until these weeks of potential for attack and presence of very low physical energy are past. May we say it is good to be with this group. We appreciate your fidelity. Are there any brief queries before the end of this work time? Questioner, only is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Ra, I am Ra. Each is supporting the instrument well and the instrument remains steady in its purpose. You are conscientious. All is well. We ward you aware of any laxity regarding the arrangement and orientation of appurtenances. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. The Law of One, Book 2, Session 47. April 18, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, could you first give us an indication of the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Questioner, the question that I was trying to ask at the end of the last session was, of what value to evolution or experience with respect to the Creator knowing itself are the positive and negative social memory complexes that form starting in fourth density, and why was this planned by the logos? Ra, I am Ra. There are inherent incorrectness in your query. However, we may answer the main point of it. The incorrectness lies in the consideration that social memory complexes were planned by the logos or sub-logos. This is incorrect, as the unity of the Creator exists within the smallest portion of any material created by love, much less in a self-aware being. However, the distortion of free will causes the social memory complex to appear as a possibility at a certain stage of evolution of mind. The purpose, or consideration which causes entities to form such complexes, of these social memory complexes, is a very simple extension of the basic distortion towards the Creator's knowing of itself. For when a group of mind-body spirits becomes able to form a social memory complex, all experience of each entity is available to the whole of the complex. Thus the Creator knows more of its creation in each entity partaking of this communion of entities. Questioner, you gave the values of better than 50% service to others for fourth density positive and better than 95% service to self for fourth density negative social memory complexes. Do these two values correspond to the same rate, shall I say, of vibration? Ra, I am Ra. I perceive you have difficulty in expressing your query. We shall respond in an attempt to clarify your query. The vibratory rates are not to be understood as the same in positive and negative orientations. They are to be understood as having the power to accept and work with intelligent infinity to a certain degree or intensity. Due to the fact that the primary color, shall we say, or energy blue is missing from the negatively oriented system of power. The green-blue vibratory energies are not seen in the vibratory schedules or patterns of negative fourth and fifth rates of vibration. The positive, on the other hand, shall we say, has the full spectrum of true color time-space vibratory patterns and thus contains a variant vibratory pattern or schedule. Each is capable of doing fourth density work. This is the criterion for harvest. Questioner: did you say that blue is missing from fourth density negative? Ra: I am Ra. Let us clarify further. As we have previously stated, all beings have the potential for all possible vibratory rates. Thus the potential of the green and blue energy center activation is, of course, precisely where it must be in a creation of love. However, the negatively polarized entity will have achieved harvest due to extremely efficient use of red and yellow-orange. Moving directly to the gateway indigo, bringing through this intelligent energy channel the in-streamings of intelligent infinity. Questioner: then at fourth density graduation into fifth, is there anything like that which you gave as the percentages necessary for third density graduation into fourth in polarization? Ra: I am Ra. There are, in your modes of thinking, responses we can make, which we shall make. However, the important point is that the graduations from density to density do occur. The positive-negative polarity is a thing which will, at the sixth level, simply become history. Therefore, we speak in an illusory time continuum when we discuss statistics of positive versus negative harvest into fifth. A large percentage of fourth density negative entities continue the negative path from fourth to fifth density experience, for without wisdom the compassion and desire to aid other self is not extremely well informed. Thus the one loses approximately 2% moving from negative to positive during the fourth density experience. We find approximately 8% of graduations into fifth density those of the negative. Questioner: what I was actually asking was if 50% is required for graduation from third to fourth in the positive sense and 95% was required for graduation in the negative sense. Does this have to more closely approach 100% for graduation in both cases for graduation from fourth to fifth density? Does an entity have to be 99% polarized for negative and maybe 80% polarized positive for graduation? Ra: I am Ra. We perceive the query now. To give this in your terms is misleading, for there are, shall we say, visual aids or training aids available in fourth density which automatically aid the entity in polarization while cutting down extremely upon the quick effect of catalyst. Thus the density above yours must take up more space-time. The percentage of service to others of positively oriented entities will harmoniously approach 98% in intention. The qualifications for fifth density, however, involve understanding. This then becomes the primary qualification for graduation from fourth to fifth density. To achieve this graduation, the entity must be able to understand the actions, the movements, and the dance. There is no percentage describable which measures this understanding. It is a measure of efficiency of perception. It may be measured by light. The ability to love, accept, and use a certain intensity of light thus creates the requirement for both positive and negative fourth to fifth harvesting. Questioner: can you define what you mean by a crystallized entity? Ra: I am Ra. We have used this particular term because it has a fairly precise meaning in your language. When a crystalline structure is formed of your physical material, the elements present in each molecule are bonded in a regularized fashion with elements in each other molecule. Thus the structure is regular and, when fully and perfectly crystallized, has certain properties. It will not splinter or break, it is very strong without effort, and it is radiant, traducing light into a beautiful refraction giving pleasure of the eye to many. Questioner: in our esoteric literature numerous bodies are listed. I have listed here the physical body, the etheric, the emotional, the astral. Can you tell me if this listing is the proper number, and can you tell me the uses and purposes and effects etc. of each of these and any other bodies that may be in our mind-body-spirit complex? Ra: I am Ra. To answer your query fully would be the work of many sessions such as this one, for the interrelationships of the various bodies and each body's effects in various situations is an enormous study. However, we shall begin by referring your minds back to the spectrum of true colors and the usage of this understanding in grasping the various densities of your octave. We have the number 7 repeated from the macrocosm to the microcosm in structure and experience. Therefore, it would only be expected that there would be 7 basic bodies which we would perhaps be most lucid by stating as red ray body, etc. However, we are aware that you wish to correspond these bodies mentioned with the color rays. This will be confusing, for various teachers have offered their learning understanding in various terms. Thus one may name a subtle body one thing and another find a different name. The red ray body is your chemical body. However, it is not the body which you have as clothing in the physical. It is the unconstructed material of the body, the elemental body without form. This basic unformed material body is important to understand, for there are healings which may be carried out by the simple understanding of the elements present in the physical vehicle. The orange ray body is the physical body complex. This body complex is still not the body you inhabit, but rather the body formed without self-awareness, the body in the womb before the spirit-mind complex enters. This body may live without the inhabitation of the mind and spirit complexes. However, it seldom does so. The yellow ray body is your physical vehicle, which you know of at this time and in which you experience catalyst. This body has the mind-body-spirit characteristics and is equal to the physical illusion, as you have called it. The green ray body is that body which may be seen in seance when what you call ectoplasm is furnished. This is a lighter body packed more densely with life. You may call this the astral body following some other teachings. Others have called this same body the etheric body. However, this is not correct in the sense that the etheric body is that body of gateway wherein intelligent energy is able to mold the mind-body-spirit complex. The light body or blue ray body may be called the devacanic body. There are many other names for this body, especially in your so-called Indian sutras or writings, for there are those among these peoples which have explored these regions and understand the various types of devacanic bodies. There are many, many types of bodies in each density, much like your own. The indigo ray body, which we choose to call the etheric body, is, as we have said, the gateway body. In this body form is substance, and you may only see this body as that of light, as it may mold itself as it desires. The violet ray body may perhaps be understood as what you might call the Buddha body, or that body which is complete. Each of these bodies has an effect upon your mind-body-spirit complex and your life beingness. The interrelationships, as we have said, are many and complex. Perhaps one suggestion that may be indicated is this: the indigo ray body may be used by the healer once the healer becomes able to place its consciousness in this etheric state. The violet ray or Buddhic body is of equal efficacy to the healer, for within it lies a sense of wholeness which is extremely close to unity with all that there is. These bodies are part of each entity, and the proper use of them and understanding of them is, though far advanced from the standpoint of third density harvest, nevertheless useful to the adept. Questioner: which bodies do we have immediately after physical death from this yellow ray body that I now am in? Ra: I am Ra. You have all bodies in potentiation. Questioner: then the yellow ray body in potentiation is used to create this chemical arrangement that I have as a physical body now. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is incorrect only in that in your present incarnation the yellow ray body is not in potentiation but in activation, it being that body which is manifest. Questioner: then after death from this incarnation we still have the yellow ray body in potentiation, but then in the general case of our planetary population after death, would they then normally have the green ray body manifested? Ra: I am Ra. Not immediately. The first body which activates itself upon death is the form maker or the indigo ray body. This body remains, you have called it the Ka, until etheria has been penetrated and understanding has been gained by the mind-body-spirit totality. Once this is achieved, if the proper body to be activated is green ray, then this will occur. Questioner: let me make a statement and you tell me if I am correct. After death then, if an entity is unaware, he may become what is called an earthbound spirit until he is able to achieve the required awareness for activation of one of his bodies. Would it be possible then to activate any of the bodies from red through violet? Ra: I am Ra. Given the proper stimulus, this is correct. Questioner: what stimulus would create what we call an earthbound spirit or a lingering ghost? Ra: I am Ra. The stimulus for this is the faculty of the will. If the will of yellow ray mind body spirit is that which is stronger than the progressive impetus of the physical death towards realization of that which comes, that is, if the will is concentrated enough upon the previous experience, the entity's shell of yellow ray, though no longer activated, cannot either be completely deactivated and, until the will is released, the mind-body-spirit complex is caught. This often occurs, as we see you are aware, in the case of sudden death as well as in the case of extreme concern for a thing or another self. Questioner: well then, does orange ray activation after death occur very frequently with this planet? Ra: I am Ra. Quite infrequently, due to the fact that this particular manifestation is without will. Occasionally another self will so demand the form of the one passing through the physical death that some semblance of the being will remain. This is orange ray. This is rare, for normally if one entity desires another enough to call it, the entity will have the corresponding desire to be called. Thus the manifestation would be the shell of yellow ray. Questioner, what does the large percentage of the Earth's population, as they pass through the physical, activate? Ra, I am Ra. This shall be the last full query of this working. The normal procedure, given in harmonious passage from yellow ray bodily manifestation, is for the mind and spirit complex to rest in the etheric or indigo body until such time as the entity begins its preparation for experience in an incarnated place which has a manifestation formed by the etheric energy molding it into activation and manifestation. This indigo body, being intelligent energy, is able to offer the newly dead, as you would term it, soul a perspective and a place from which to view the experience most recently manifested. Is there a short query we may answer at this time? Questioner, I will only ask if there is anything that we may do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Ra, I am Ra. The appurtenances are conscientiously measured by eye and spirit. You are conscientious. All is well. Observe this instrument to ensure continued building of the vital energies. It will have to work upon its own physical energies, for this weakness was brought about by free will of the self. I am Ra. We leave you now in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, that was really good. I hope all of you guys will be able to really just absorb all the information that Ra was talking about. So when we talk about ghosts, when Ra was talking about a ghost, I just want to kind of clear things up because it was kind of hard to understand. Now, when we're talking about all the energy centers, all the way to indigo, which is basically oneness, enlightenment, being completely immersed into source energy, the one infinite creator. Well, sometimes Ra uses like all these sound bites and over again, and you start to get a little lost in what it all means. And I'm going to be doing a video, like an intermission, about all the sound bites that Ra uses and really just try to break down what the law of one actually is. So I'm working on that one. I'm going to get it to you guys. But let's talk a little bit about ghosts and what happens when you die. Now, basically what Ra is trying to say is that our bodies are being activated through an extension of source. So you've heard the term higher self, right? So your higher self is not fully immersed into on earth, like in our bodies, because he did mention ectoplasm, which is kind of like, a skid mark of a tire, like a car skidded away and left a tire mark. Well, that tire mark is not the car, right? It's just the remnants of a car that used to be there. It's not even the body. It's not, and that's kind of what a ghost is. It's remnants. Now, the stronger energy is when a person dies, say they die young and in a sudden accident and they really weren't ready and they didn't want to die and they have all this energy behind them of wanting to stay. Well, then that is more energy involved in being kind of left behind a little bit. Okay, and that's basically what a ghost is. It's just the remnant of energy. It's not your full self. Okay, it's not like people think about, there's lost souls out there and they don't know how to cross over and say, well, it's just a remnants that will dissipate, that will eventually kind of get scooped up and back into source. And what Ra is trying to say, that when your body fails and you actually die, you go back into indigo form. You go back into your higher self, your one true self, and you're going to remember your life on earth and all your past lives on earth, and you're going to have time to almost rest and reset. Now that can take any amount of time. It can take a few minutes, and you're right back into another body. Now, he also mentioned, and I think this part is really important, he actually answers the longest lived question ever about when the soul actually enters a body, because a fetus is not prepared and cannot handle, their energy centers are not developed in order to handle consciousness being placed in it through source. It's like it's kind of like a radio signal that needs to be transmitted from source, from your higher self, and your body is the radio picking up the signal. Now, you can't have half a radio picking up a signal. There's just not enough there. Because I think that part is important to know. You need to have the energy centers within the body functioning in order to put consciousness in it. Once all those centers are developed, then the consciousness can enter. Sometimes the consciousness will not enter the body until way after like a baby is born. And I've heard this from mothers even saying, they took care of their baby when it was a couple months old, and then all of a sudden one day there was someone looking back at them that wasn't there the day before. So things like that happen. And Ra was trying to tell you that when you die, you go back to source, you go back and you reconnect with your higher self, and you kind of pick what else you want to do for your expansion. This is by your choice of what you're going to do next. And then again, you re-extend your higher self back into the next life, is what Ra was trying to say. So if you guys want to like listen to that session back again, it is really good when he talks about all the energy centers of our bodies and how they are developed, because our basic red ray is our elements, that it's just the stuff that everything's made up of. And how we go into orange ray, which is basically, now we have a body but it doesn't have a consciousness in it. And then we get into the yellow ray, which is what we all have with consciousness. And then we have green ray, which is expression of emotion with each other and for each other, and so on and so on. So I might do a video later on breaking it all down and maybe have some visuals for you, because that might be helpful. But we're almost done with book 2. We're going to finish it in the next session. So thank you so much, guys, for listening, and I will see you in the next video.